Good morning, Seekers, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Critical Grays podcast. I am your co-host, Bodhi, also known as Bodhi on the Discords, and I am joined by my co-host, Ethan, also known as Jabroni Apologist on the Discord.
Hello.
Ethan, what is your favorite card in all of Malediction?
Dang. That's a hard one. There's a lot of directions I could take that. There's snazzy cards, there's reliable cards, there's funny cards. I'm gonna have to go with Polinor's card itself.
Just Polynor the guy?
Yeah, I think not only are the abilities crazy, but it's really cool art. I like the way he's posed. It kind of gives you a very solid idea of the kind of guy he is, which is to say, not a very nice one. It's something. Whenever I'm like, and I feel like all of the secret cards are pretty good at being like, they're grandiose enough to be like, oh, this is the guy in charge. You put him down on your side of the board, and you're like, oh, that's the seeker. So that's my answer. What's yours?
Oh man, I wasn't even thinking about it. I'm gonna have to go with the Ambulous transportation or
Ambilous transposition. Yeah, that's a good
that one. I think that the art is super sick. I just love the orbital pattern that you kind of get. It just like it looks like a spell, and I think that swapping stuff around the field is such an interesting mechanic. Like you get the move part. Everybody does that, but swapping is just a little bit snazzier.
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the key spells with Polynor, where it's like, wow, you can do that, and that kind of drew me to him. Today we are going to be fuck me. I'm sorry. We're going to be disgusting. All right, maybe you do that part then. I'm fucking blown out, dude.
That's all right. Well, we're not here to talk about Polynor and his spells today. That was last week, so if you missed it, go check that out. But today we're talking about a different kind of snazzy, cool dude. We've got Andrew, aka Zog 2, Prince of Evil. First account got hacked. We're talking about Vorendal, the Dreadheart. He's a charismatic, he's a bit of a bad boy, and we're going to learn all about what makes it tick. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. It's a bit of a long one, so strap in, grab some popcorn.
Learn all about mono green, yeah.
Yeah, raise some zombies to listen with you.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time. All right, so we're here with Andrew Pryor, aka Zog.
What's up?
Why don't you tell us a little about how you started playing this game?
So I got into this game at this last Adepticon when a certain someone you might know as Bodhi decided he was going to buy into it. And so in between matches of Armada Worlds, we ended up just playing game after game of Malediction. And it was a good time. And so now I just live in TTS.
I think there's a good chance that we played more complete games of Malediction in the Armada area at Adepticon than like actual Armada games.
Oh yeah, no. For me, it's well higher. I think because I finished at 11 Armada, and we might have had 11 Malediction in the first game of playing it.
Yeah, 100%. When we got into it, you gravitated towards Sigrith, but now you've kind of been you've been making Vorendal work.
Yeah, and I guess we should say, for posterity, at this point in the game, Vorendal for a while was considered one of kind of the weaker seekers. Like, I saw a lot of people kind of early into the game's life rating him pretty low, and I think you, Zog, have been kind of at the head of the pack of kind of cracking him wide open and being like, no, you're not using him correctly. He has like amazing stuff you can leverage.
He's got a lot of weird cards. Like, on average, his power level per card, with the exception of a small handful of very notable exceptions. Like, a lot of your damage dealing spells are just worse twin flame. And that's just something. But they come with an attack. And that seems to matter a lot.
Yeah. I think the easiest way, we'll get more into this later, but it does seem like the easiest way to understand his legacy is use a spell, also get a free copy of Adrenaline Rush.
I'm surprised. That's good. Doing more things and punching more people tends to be good in the game. And so what he ends up doing a lot of is you have these really efficient pieces already, and the whole point of the deck is just taking something that's good and trying to make it great.
With that being said, you want to give us a little rundown on Stavas, the guy?
He picked that name for himself. I'm a little disappointed he went with Stevas for his first name. Maybe there's some context, I don't know. So, good old Stevas Vorendal is dead. Like most people in the eastern part of the continent, in the country of Belios. Unfortunately, to explain his backstory, we do need to talk about Belios a little bit. So, at the center of Belios, which is, as I said, in the eastern part of Selija, the continent the game takes place on, is the city of Abyssola. So Abyssola, back in the before times, before the big civil war, where most of the Everlasting and their species got wiped out, killing each other, was sort of this enlightened society. It literally floated above the ground. It was a flying city. And the ruler of it, the Everlasting, Patan Revalum. There's a lot of funky names kind of in the fluff for the Legion. She was basically the nicest Everlasting. She was obviously, she had the same demigod status above her, like the original species the Everlasting came from, the Firstborn. But she was a lot nicer about it than anybody else, and she tried to be the first among equals in the way she ruled. She was very well liked and very beloved. So of course, when the Triumvirs, the three everlasting demigods who ran things rather before their deaths in the Civil War, over in the west, out of Astaris, they basically came to the conclusion she was over there. She was trying to create new types of magic that would like suspend death and like doing a bunch of like she was just giving out power for free to like the little people. And they decided they didn't like the cut of her jib, so they blew her and her city out of the sky. And it fell to earth, and everybody in the city, except for her and her 3 children that she had by a mortal man, died horribly, falling out of the sky. In her rage, Patan Ravam took the body of her now deceased hubby and turned it into an incredibly powerful legacy. And she basically using this new kind of magic that she'd been cooking up for a while that was extremely powerful but fundamentally flawed and incomplete. It was supposed to be the antidote for death. She raised every single man, woman, and child in the city as her new nation, the Legion of the Fallen, and then proceeded to wage the rest of the war that killed off the vast majority of the Everlasting. So she basically realized that, like, even with her hubby's magical powers, she basically turned him into a scepter, if you'd like to think about it that way. She wouldn't be able to keep pace. She wouldn't be able to protect her people. So in the end, she ended up turning herself into an extremely powerful artifact as well, however the heck that works, which are known as a vestige, which is very similar to the oracle. That the oracle is also a vestige, which seemed to be like a legacy on steroids because they have the soul of an everlasting in them, essentially. So you can kind of think of these twin relics as a crown and scepter. Whenever anybody new rises to control Belios, which has to be like, somebody who's already extremely powerful, they have to basically spiritually go before these 2 artifacts, and they judge to see if they're worthy, if they've got a pure heart. Kind of similar, honestly, to how things work with the Conclave. You have to go before the Oracle of Moloch before you get to become an Exi. Also important, becoming the king or queen of the dead is, you'd think if they'd last forever because, most of them are dead, but that power and position and use of those relics apparently also, like, annihilates your soul over a long period of time. So the position changes every few decades, more than you might think. And there's always nobles in the upper echelons of the society of Belios, like jockeying for that position. Through this kind of weird and idealistic foundations, they've sort of positioned themselves as the protectors of the smaller, like neutral states on the continent. They're kind of if anybody's like a Napoleonic war nerd, they're kind of the Austria of their time. They're like, we will support whoever is independent, and they use that kind of as a buffer between them and the other great powers. So, what does this have to do with Vorendal? So Vorendal basically stepped into the scene of the politics of Belios already as an incredibly powerful warlord who had long since given away his mortality and morality for power. And he stepped in during the Luminos Crusade, in which the Order of the Shattered Throne was doing what it does, which is to say, persecuting minorities. They were basically trying to enforce their triumvirate-based religion on the independent city of Veloma, which Veloma comes up a lot in the lore for this game. It's kind of a center point for trade and stuff like that. So anyway, Veloma was being besieged by the Shattered Throne, and the Legion was considering intervening, but they were like, oh my god, this is going to take such a long time. Sieges are such a drag. And then Vorendal walks up to the Queen of the Dead, and he's like, my queen, if you tell me that I can go and do this, I will fix this problem for you. I will make this problem go away. I will crush the Shattered Throne forces, and I will do it quickly. And the queen is like, wow, this guy is just like evil, isn't he? Like she can vibe check him, and she's like, oh my god, this guy's awful. But she's like, okay, well, this needs to be done. Go have fun. So he uses his legacy, the Dreadheart, which he of course got plumbing into the malediction, which is that delightful purple jewel on his chest. And basically what it does is it keeps him alive, and it's the reason that he's immortal in the way that he is, undead as he is. And it basically has this field of necromantic power that raises corpses around him and keeps them in the fight. So he basically went on this massive campaign where he slaughtered the crap out of the Legion forces and raised everybody that he came across, Legion and anybody else, like random bystanders who happened to die in the fighting. And he broke the siege and chased the Shattered Throne forces away at horrifying losses. And he was basically made the Queen's top guy overnight for his massive success. He became, very well known for this. And he was basically given the chance to go before the two extremely powerful relics, the legacy and the vestige that all future kings and queens of the dead must go before they can decide if they're worthy. But he failed the vibe check really hard. The relics were like, wow, this guy's evil, and he doesn't care about anybody. And they rejected him. So he basically took his ball and went home in a huff. He's still technically like part of the Legion, but his loyalty to the higher-ups is extremely dubious. And he basically went back into the malediction, this time looking for a way that he could basically usurp the relics that control his country and make sure that its leaders behave so that he can be an evil SOB when he's in power. Not exactly a very... He's very straightforward as a character. He's very power hungry. He's very charismatic and manipulative. And he doesn't really care who he has to stomp on to get his way. And he has like a repeated history of either seducing or just befriending people and then getting what he wants out of them. And then he tosses them aside when he's done with them. He's just kind of a beast. He's a power-hungry beast, and he's everybody's problem.
I heard upstanding citizen and great guy who really knows what he's going for, and he just pursues his goals.
He's a bit of a girl boss.
He's a girl boss.
Yes.
Well, all of that being said, if you enjoy listening to anything malediction lore wise, go check out our friends on the Into the Malediction podcast. They do lore focused episodes every single week, and are some pretty cool dudes as well. With that being said, though, let's talk shop. How do we crack this deck open and raise our army of the dead? So Vorendal the Dreadheart is a 10 Echo Mono Legion Seeker. He has an accuracy of 5, a power of 6 on a hit and 3 on a graze, a range of 0, a speed of 5, a defense of 13, a health of 18, and he's got 3 abilities. So we've got Onslaught, which is 2 action points. This unit performs up to 3 separate melee attacks. Aura of Fear 2, while enemies are within 6 inches, they get -2 accuracy. And Regeneration 2, whenever you activate this unit, it recovers 2 health.
I will also say, that he does technically have a 4th ability because he is a fallen unit. He actually has Persist 1 because his legacy, which we'll talk about in just a moment, gives all fallen units in the army Persist 1.
That's true. So, Andrew, is there anything on this card that really stands out to you, or when you look at this unit card, like what are you most excited about?
The short answer is he's an absolute beast in basically every way. Between Aura of Fear, a really high defense, and regen, he's borderline immortal unless you put him in the middle of absolutely everything. He hits like a truck, especially if you can ever get Onslaught to trigger. Or when in doubt, you're just charging for 6 damage, which is not something to laugh about. His only main problem is his speed, but that is easily fixable in green, where everything is like solidly fast, and some things are super fast, or you just play terrain and like all of your guys are super fast. He comes out in basically every game. If you could get an onslaught off with him, you almost win on the spot. He's just insane.
I think it's really interesting. We kind of mentioned this last week, but Polynor is like kind of the exception with the monocolored Seekers. Vorendal and the other 2 are just like these big melee beatstick guys. All of them hit reasonably hard and then like kind of go about it with their own little sprinkle of flavor. But I think what kind of separates Vorendal from the pack here is the Aura of Fear in combination with the Regeneration 2 and the Persist that we'll talk about soon. Because he makes it more likely that your opponent's units are going to be grazing, which means that they're doing a little bit less damage, and the regeneration can heal him back up. So are you losing this unit a lot? Does he usually survive?
I mean, it depends on the situation. If it's a situation where you got to throw him away, sometimes you just got to throw Vorendal away in exchange for massive compensation. But in general,
Sure.
a lot of the times you're winning games with him still on the table where he deployed extremely early. He is interesting in that he's kind of the midpoint between the 2 ends of the spectrum, because Sigrid is very much the defensive masterclass of the monos, and then Thundersteps is just pure offense, and Vorendal operates as kind of the mid-range of the 4 monos. And a lot of that does come down to his card, because he's an amazing defensive piece if you're charging into Onslaught and Aura. He's not going to take very much damage, and then he's going to do an insane amount back. And even on, like, since you're rarely grazing, you're still going to do a lot of damage if you're charging him at pieces. That's just kind of going to lead into everything else we talk to, is a lot. When Vorendal is at his best, a very who's the beatdown type analysis. You look at your opponent's deck, you look at what's on the table, and you decide whether you're playing offense or defense at this moment. And if you choose right, you're going to do really well. And if you choose poorly, obviously you're going to lose pretty quickly as well. But
Yeah, he's kind of the way I've seen him often played, especially by you, is kind of the anvil, while your other units are often the hammer. Like he will be kind of at the center of whatever you're planning and just walking forwards. And God help you if you're still there when he gets to you. It's interesting because he's like an anvil, but then like I guess like you could still drop an anvil on somebody and it does a lot of damage. What really is kind of interesting to me is you'd think kind of as a middle point between Sigrith and Thundersteps that he would kind of like be a little weaker overall because you're getting that flexibility, but I don't feel like he is. I think he's just kind of in most situations he finds himself in as green. Like he's just great. He always has something to do, even if that something is just running at you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk a little bit about his legacy, which is Heartlock. So, just as with all of the monocolored seekers in the game, you'll have a starting echo of 25, and the legacy has two abilities. We have Dreadful Command. During an ally's activation, whenever you play a damage-dealing spell, a non-seeker fallen ally you own may perform an attack or a move after that spell resolves, once for each ally per activation. And Undying Will. Fallen allies you own gain Persist 1. So this legacy is kind of what, at least in my opinion, put a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth about Vorendal for a while getting into the game. He was the first seeker that I tried, and like obviously the unit itself is quite strong, but I was having some trouble figuring out what made this legacy tick, because the fact that Dreadful Command only works with damage dealing spells, which there aren't a whole lot currently, and it only works with non-seeker fallen allies. Usually that's just going to be your basic zombies or skeletons, which don't have the craziest stats on them. And the persist ability is a little bit awkward to use. It says whenever this unit would suffer lethal damage, you may exhaust it. If you do, it survives with 1 health. And so, yes, you're surviving on the board, but on the flip side, like you're losing your activation and you're only surviving at 1 health. So, assuming they have another AP or any kind of spell, they're going to, even if they roll a natural 1, a critical grace, they're going to kill the unit that you just persisted. So, Andrew, could you tell us a little about, why is this less awkward than I thought? Like, what makes persist powerful? What makes the ability to get these extra moves and attacks a useful part of Vorendal's kit?
so with Vorendal, a lot of the time, and what both of the abilities on this play to is, he does a lot with influencing the like action point economy of the game. So seeing as your opponent, generally they'll probably end up with somewhere in the 4 to 5 units, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on deck choices. In general, in every round, they're probably going to have 10 action points available, roughly, on a good day, including spells that do similar things. They can push it higher. And everything about Vorendal is just trying to make sure that you have more effective action points spent throughout the course of the game by a solid margin. So persist effectively means that for your unit to die, a lot of the time it's going to take, say, men at arms, who normally gets killed in like 3 solid shots. If he gets to persist at any point of that, not only is it taking it from 3 to 4, but if they don't end up managing to kill him that round, then it's 4 to 6. And between that and combining with the fact that, yeah, okay, let's be honest with ourselves. With some exceptions, the damage dealing spells at green are not what you want. We effectively have uh, two damage cards with another effect that most of the time you don't want to trigger. It's a lot of using your spells as dealing damage to the opposition. But attached to every single one of those is, as you mentioned, the adrenaline rush. And so as long as you can keep triggering, especially because you're very consistent, because a lot of your units, while they don't tend to be like dead at arms, you aren't hitting very often. But if they have that swarm, they're still doing 2 damage, which is like, for a 2-3 cost unit, that's like about 50%, like a little over 50% of say a Terran Beast hit or something. And so
It's
just
like
being able to do that 2 damage a ton of times will eventually wear something down. And if you get lucky at any point, you're just killing them quicker, and that's never bad.
I think that like comparing him to like Thundersteps, who's like another big heavy hitter, and whose legacy promotes heavy hitters. Like Thundersteps is scary, and Thundersteps units are scary because they're gonna hit you really hard like once. Like they're gonna come in and it's like 8 damage, and you know they'll obliterate something small or like cripple something like a little bigger. But what makes Vorendal so good, in my opinion, is that he won't like hit you once for like 8, 11 damage or whatever. He'll go, I'm going to hit you 5 times, and 3 of those can be grazes, and it'll be fine. There's not a central point of failure because all of his actions are spread out over all of the activations you get off of the legacy.
Yeah, that combined with a lot of the high add to dice stats on a lot of his more important units, like your spiders, your Cessinar, your Vorendal, your Thrice, means that he could be extremely consistent and very. You can almost do the math and figure out how long it's going to take to kill this guy, and you're going to be pretty much on the dot basically every time because your units
Yeah.
are either grazing every turn or they're hitting every turn, and there's no in between.
I think like as funny and as great as Overkill is, like don't get me wrong, when something just gets completely obliterated, it is hilarious. You are leaving value on the table when you like hit something for 6 health when it only had 2 health left. You are pound for pound getting more out of like, oh well, I did exactly the amount of damage I needed to, or I did 1 over, and just doing that consistently over the course of the game. Because you've got to think about like, well, you're basically paying the points cost for things that hit harder. So in Vorendal's case, it's like, yeah, his stuff does 2 or 3 damage maybe, but it costs that. It like everything's 2 or 3 or maybe 4 cost to bring onto the board too. So it kind of makes up for it.
And combine that with persist, creating a lot of overkill opportunities. He just does more a lot of the games.
Exactly. It's like he's kind of my secondary main at this point. So like it's really fun to hear all this put into words. But yeah, he's just really consistent, and his units are so cheap. Even his expensive ones are like on aggregate, I feel that they're so worth their value a lot of the time.
So, wanted to quickly, I guess, just like give some lived experience with the persist. In the most recent Tabletop Simulator tournament, my last round opponent was playing Vorendal, and it took me. So he played a archer on the first turn of the game, and it took me until round 4 to actually kill the thing because there was just never an opportunity that was like efficient enough for me to take shots that I knew were just going to, it was going to persist and stay alive and contest the husk. And like I could devote 2 activations to try and take down this archer, but that was going to throw off, my setup completely. And so I ended up deciding to just let it live for the longest time. And I mean, then it was just contributing its shots from, a few inches away. And it really is one of those things where it might not seem like the most swingy or impactful ability. Like it is nothing anywhere in the realm of like Polynor's ability to play 2 spells in a turn. You get no flash, but you get consistency, and you get. I mean, honestly, I think Andrew's description was perfect of using his own units' efficiency and then the persist to make your opponent's units less efficient to alter the action point economy of the game.
Yeah, to add to that a little bit, when I go up against Vorendal as Polynor, I'm running a type ship that's like kind of a low activation setup, and a lot of times there will just be a bunch of skeletons milling around, and I just I can't be asked to like play whack-a-mole with a lot of them. It's like, yeah, well, I guess that Stitch Corpse is just going to sit there at 3 health because that's like 2 more attacks I'm going to have to invest, and I just don't have the time. And like that means that Stitch Corpse is going to be able to keep harassing, or just the way he leverages action economy through the use of his legacy is like gross. It's really good.
And it is also important to note that once we start talking about the bigger units that could get on the table, a lot of times, like if Thrice is on the table, this 2 damage brutal outburst for 2 echo has now become effectively a 7 damage spell into whatever you want, and Thrice is going to get to heal or whatever else you have there, or it's just Thrice gets to move an extra thing.
Before we get into that too much, I want to talk a little bit about some terrain options. So if I were to go right now and pick up a Vorendal Seeker deck, I would get the Death Shroud Mire. Death Shroud Mire has concealing. Units with ambush may use this terrain as a deploy zone, and obscuring. Only units on this terrain can trace line of sight through it. A little fun fact is Vorendal is the only Seeker currently who includes the Death Shroud Mire in their Seeker deck. However, Vorendal works pretty well with all of the pieces of terrain, except for the Noxious Flesh Gardens. So I'm going to quickly go over the other 2 that might come up. So we've got Starcast Halls, which has Arcane. During the activation of an ally you own, channels you play cost 1 fewer echo while that ally is on this terrain. And Asterian Pathways, which has boosting. Units on this terrain perform actions with +2 speed. So, Andrew, could you tell us a little bit about your choice in which terrain you bring, or maybe just why all 3 of these work so well?
So this is one of the nice things about Vorendal, is as of right now, and with the cards we have available, there isn't a guaranteed best way to do Vorendal. So all of the like 3 terrains you would use, I mean, you could pull out Noxious Flesh Gardens. I just don't know what you're going to do with them. But with the others, they provide a lot of different options. If you're playing halls, you just get, I mean, you're going to be swimming in echo. All your stuff is already cheap. You're making things even cheaper, which gives you, if your card draw can keep up with it, you can have the potential to have a lot more. Similarly, green terrain is weird because green terrain has some problems. There are some times where it's just not going to do anything for you. So ambush units, a lot of them are fine at best. And green has, I mean, Destinar is pretty solid, and spiders are pretty good. However, if you don't hit at max, you got 3 cards plus the 2 items that give you stuff ambush. You have at max 5 ambush units in your deck. And playing the terrain that supports at max 5 units doesn't feel great, especially because in situations that happens, like if you end up playing, say, a Vorendal mirror against an Ingor that for some reason is playing spiders and ambushers and things like that, it could get really awkward really fast. Where, for example, there are some games where if your opponent tries to sneak an ambush unit forward, whoever has the initiative can just drop another unit on top of it and then win, because they just murder whatever the enemy tried to forward deploy as the first activation of the game. And obviously, I have opinions on green terrain, but feel free to try it if it works well. Feel free to @ me. But in my opinion, Pathways is the best. And part of that comes from, I think, the best way to play Vorendal is this very balancy. You could play either offense or defense. That Pathways is just kind of the perfect band-aid that fixes and makes so many of its units so good. Turns out that Vorendal charging at, what is it, 14, 15, somewhere up there, is good.
Yep.
Thrice charging at 21 is even better. Stitched Corpse being able to move like a normal unit is awesome. It just provides the perfect band-aid and the perfect boost to so many of your cards that just let the deck function that little bit better and makes everything that little bit more efficient. And it's just good. And the beautiful thing is you can take advantage of a lot of the other terrain that comes up. If your opponent is playing halls, great. We have some channels we would like to cast for cheap. If your opponent is playing pathways, great. Everything you have is going to be moving at max speed and it's going to be great. If your opponent is playing green, that's the best case scenario because if you get to drop a spider on top of something, swing 3 times with a damage dealing spell, you just annihilate something and it's beautiful. So a lot of terrain choices come down to how you're choosing to build your Vorendal.
He really is the normal guy of this game in a weird way. Like he's just move and attack man. He's he's the solid middle. A lot of what he does is just kind of a balance between extremes. He really is the everyman of this game.
John Malediction.
Yes, exactly.
I do want to quickly add in, so Andrew mentioned the Shadow Shroud equipment. Simply, this unit gains ambush 1. So the way that deployment works in this game is you have a staging period where you announce everything that you will be deploying during your deployment phase, and then you can place it or rearrange it during this staging window however you want. So that's why you're able to say, like, okay, I'm willing to play my Terek Beast and my Stitched Corpse or whatever, and kind of mess with them a little bit, figure out whatever works best for you. Because you have the staging window, you can say, I'm going to deploy Vorendal and I'm going to attach a Shadow Shroud. And by the time the game actually cares to check about which deployment zone you're going to be placing your unit in, you already have the ambush keyword from the Shadow Shroud. So you can use it to place a unit inside the Death Shroud Mire.
Yeah, I think Vorendal offers like a lot of flexibility in your approach, kind of belied by, you know, he has basically as few cards as any Seeker has because he's mono deck. But you can build him in a lot of kind of subtly but importantly different ways.
We can talk a little bit about husk placement as well. Is there anything that you've kind of discovered is an important tip, or is it just kind of situationally based, or are you just kind of throwing out your terrain?
So a lot of these decisions come down to what you're playing against and what they're trying to do. As we just discussed, you got some charging things that really want to charge you and get in your face. You got some things that want to sit back. The nice thing about the current malediction situation in this case is there aren't a whole lot of mid-range seekers. So from the get-go and from deck inspection, you pretty much know which of those game plans you're going to go for. So placing husks based off that. If anything, Vorendal really benefits from just a balanced game board. So unless it's something like, your classic the deck where you're trying to deny any husks from them, you're pretty much perfectly okay doing a 2-for-2 split on the husks and then just going at it. If just because that beginning, well, you've seen the least cards, and so the least amount of your powerful cards. This is going to be a recurring theme of you really want to be hitting your really good cards.
I think
That
it really
entirely depends.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think it really says something that Vorendal benefits so much from balance. He really is the best of us. He doesn't need any gimmicks.
Just punches people in the face harder, and it's beautiful.
So Next, we're going to talk about just a general strategy overview. So this is your one-stop shop for picking up the Seeker, learning what it wants to do. Are we playing defensively and camping in the corner? Are we getting aggressive? And we're going to talk about kind of the gameplay choices or deck building choices that are going to get us there. So just very broadly, I mean, we've talked about Vorendal wanting to be a kind of a mid-range option here. Are there some deck building choices that we're going to make to, I guess, keep us very balanced?
The biggest determiner of how you want to play a Vorendal is what's your unit to spell split, which we will talk about attachments a little bit later because it does make an interesting case. But the higher, like if you're a good bit over 20, you're playing balls to the walls, full aggro, and just throwing people. If you're in that like 20-ish range, you're really going to be leaning towards a more mid-range, balanced E style.
You're
Now,
talking about units here?
yes, units to spells.
Is there anything else that you would feel fits into just like a general strategy guide?
The biggest thing I would say is wargamers in general tend to be overly aggressive. Just because you have a charge doesn't mean you have to charge. There are a lot of situations in Vorendal where it's the best to just turn down a charge. Just even if it's just walk near somebody such that you can then deploy off them and get into engagement that way. Restrain your impulses a little bit. It'll be okay if you don't get damage now most of the time.
I feel like that's good, especially because, as we were talking, you kind of want to string your opponent along when it comes to dealing damage to his units. He's got a lot of units that they, even with persist, they, 3 solid hits, like you were saying. And most of the time, them getting in one charge hit. Now, the charge hit that, he's not Thundersteps. The charge doesn't do anything extra. It's kind of whatever. It's not going to do as much for you as if you put them nearby, you pressure them. Most units in this game do not have a ranged attack. And you can basically force them to come into you and waste their action points. I think that's a good way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of these more aggressive Seekers want to front load their damage. So if we take a look at Thundersteps, his legacy gives him extra damage on a charge, and he's a 7-3 big old beatstick guy. Whereas Vorendal wants to play a bit longer of a game. The fact that persist and regeneration kind of favor multiple turns of the game, multiple activations to get your health back. These are not people that need to win the game within the first few turns. Vorendal is okay playing into like turn 4 or 5, and I feel like he does pretty well a bit later than that, as long as you don't draw just like a bunch of dead units late.
This is where we got to throw in the one caveat. Vorendal has absolutely no scaling. None. I guess technically you could count Curse, but we'll get into the discussion later. Curse is, we'll leave it at interesting for now. So if you get in like a long slog against something like a Laundriel or a slow Auric that's just priest farming up on you and things like that, things with prey and significant amounts of draw cards, if that game goes on too long, you're just flat losing. So Vorendal needs to finish fast against those people and needs to stretch out long games against things like Thundersteps.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Got to get in there.
All right, let's talk some specific cards. So we've got both Andrew and us as hosts have picked out for each basic, elite, and unique a specific card that we feel like really shines. So we'll start off with our basic units, just our basic cards. Andrew, what do you think is the most important basic in the deck?
Corpses are so broken, and it's time someone talked about it.
The Stitched Corpse. It's a 2-cost unit, fallen, stitched. It has an accuracy of 2, a power of 2 on a hit and 1 on a graze, a range of 0, a speed of a whopping 3, a defense of 8, a health of 8, and it's got three abilities. We've got Swarm 2. This unit gets +2 power on attacks against enemies engaged with another ally. Clumsy. This unit cannot equip attachments. And Resistance 1. Whenever this unit is dealt damage, it suffers 1 fewer damage. Be free.
And never forget the secret 4th ability, Persist.
Yes.
So, corpses hit like a truck for 2 points. And they can hit like a truck a lot of times because they're the Fallen. And so you can play damage dealing spells. And raising on a 3 with Swarm, which is a very easy condition to trigger most of the time. They're gross. And they're secretly extremely bulky. They are amazing against chip damage things like Polynor and things that just want to twin flames you over and over and over. Because it takes 4 Empower spell boosted twin flames to knock down a stitched corpse. And even then, most of the time, you could just persist that last one. They're grossly tanky. Now, we do need to talk about the 2 elephants in the room. They're clumsy. That part's pretty mitigatable by the fact that almost everything else in your deck can pick up relics. And they're slow as heck. Which is luckily why we have a lot of other fast-ish people in the faction and pathways to carry them where they need to be. But once they get there, they're going to hit like a truck, and they don't feel bad about it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'd say that they're kind of, from what I've seen, sort of lower priority when it comes to giving them extra moves and stuff like that. You know, game state is game state. But most of the time, if there's multiple things, if there's a Dead at Arms on the board and a Stitch Corpse, you're going to give the free move to a Dead at Arms. It's one of those things where you'd think you'd be spending more of your legacy juice on it to make up for their speed. But considering what they are, I think you just kind of fire and forget them sometimes. You're just like, okay, this thing's going to be a problem in 2 rounds. Have fun. And they don't need any more support, which is kind of cool because it means you can put your extra attack on your Spider or something like that, your Duskwood Prowler, or one of your other like harder hitting units.
So for our host pick, we've got the Disgraced Kinship. So this is one of the newer units from the Griza deck. It costs 3 Echo and is a unit Fallen. It has an accuracy of 2, a power of 3 on a hit and 1 on a graze, a range of 0, a speed of 6, a defense of 11, a health of 10, and it has 1 ability, Onslaught, which we should be familiar with from our Seeker. Mm-hmm. In case you're not, it's 2 action points. This unit performs up to 3 separate melee attacks. Ethan, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Disgraced Kinship?
I feel like this unit opened up all of the Seekers with green, kind of for different reasons. I think it's kind of a load-bearing unit in that regard. It is, at its core, a green bronze unit, like a basic. It's kind of squishy. Its grazes are still 1, which isn't great, even with Onslaught. But I feel like it's kind of an ascended basic. It has a lot of potential, and I feel like that potential comes up over the course of the game. You can kind of decide what you're going to do with them. They are, I think, really strong picks to have in your deck for the Barrow Defiler. I know the Barrow Defiler is not super highly rated, but at the moment, I think it does kind of have a place just as kind of to fill out green decks. And being able to give something like the Barrow Defiler Onslaught is really gnarly, so them dying isn't too bad in that regard. And once again, with the Legacy, you can get these guys in. You can, they might be 5 off from somebody, and you move them with the Legacy, and then they get an Onslaught off. I also think they're in a weird position of being a basic unit that is actually worth putting attachments on. Because even though their individual attacks are not amazing, they can make 3 of them. So something like the Feral Gauntlets or the Horned Helmet, anything that raises their base damage at all, or just makes them more accurate, I think can actually raise them up to be pretty nasty. I think they're just really good generally in most situations. I will say that they're really big. They're on like a large base, and that's not a good thing or a bad thing. That's kind of just a thing. They can engage a lot of stuff. They can really be a good thing to deploy off of, but they do sometimes struggle with, getting into crevices and stuff. So just kind of be aware of that. Otherwise, I think they're just a little better, at least for my purposes, than something like a Dead at Arms. Just a tad, just a touch. I will say it's a pretty tight competition as far as like bronze green units go. They're all really good.
Yeah, we do have to obligatorily shout out all of the green bronze units because they're all fantastic in their own ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dead at
They're
Arms are
also
just your workhorses. They hit things. Bowmen are your relic carriers most of the time, in that you're not really too sad if one of them just sits in a corner and Ring of Time something from afar. Or it grabs Veil Piercer, and suddenly that unit is just doing ridiculous amounts of damage. They're all fantastic. You can't go wrong.
the other thing I'll say is they do have 10 health, so they're a little bit more substantive than your basic 8 health unit. And there are a lot of relics in this game that just make basic attack a little better. Like best case scenario, like you get something like, I think, the helm on them, because if the scythe is on the board, you're going to want to put it either on Vorendal or Thrice. But there's a lot of kind of second pick damage items in this game where it's like, now this onslaught to this otherwise kind of whatever unit is doing 3-5, and it's just like really gnarly and consistent. I kind of, once again, a lot of what Vorendal does is he just gives you more attacks and more moves, and this guy, because of onslaught, has the potential to really spike that damage, or at least make your opponent worried about it, which is almost as good.
All right, let's move on to some silver. So, Andrew's pick is the Duskwood Prowler, which is a 7-cost elite unit Fallen Abomination. It has an accuracy of 4, a power of 4 on a hit and 2 on a graze, a range of 0, a speed of 8, a defense of 12, a health of 12, and we've got Ambush 2. This unit gains +2 power on attacks against refreshed enemies. And Nimble. This unit can move without provoking retaliation. Obligatory insert. It also has Persist.
It hits like a truck, and it moves quickly. And it turns out that both of those things are good in Vorendal. Now, if it dies, it dies. I mean, yes, it's a 7-master unit, but if it died, you probably got like 12 damage on something important. So, 7 mastery, it's whatever.
Yeah.
Plus, if you get a damage dealing spell off, the most beautiful thing of all time is you charge something and then the spider activates first the next round. And you just absolutely lay waste to something, especially if you got a damage dealing spell to move it onto the next thing or something. It's great. It's the ultimate seeker assassin. Even things like 2 Sigrith counters can't take it down. So it's just that awkward, ridiculous amounts of damage that the opponent wasn't quite ready to mitigate. Or it's just the fact that, hey, Vorendal's in your face now. And that's never bad.
Yeah, I think that they serve kind of an interesting function in Vorendal's game plan. They are pretty fragile, and 7 mastery is not nothing. But they're really scary, and I feel like they can almost work as a distraction card effects of sorts. They can be the unit that you throw down somewhere, and it's like, oh crap, like if that guy gets engaged with my squishy backline stuff, he's just gonna kill 3 units. And then they'll do whatever they can do, and they'll probably kill the spider, maybe even before it gets to do something cool. But while all of that was going on, your 2 Dead at Arms and Vorendal are up the board. They're just durable enough that your opponent needs to put 3 good attacks into them, or a really solid activation in which they don't miss, which they have a defense of 12, which isn't bad, especially for green. They need to kind of really prepare and do something about them pretty quickly. They're kind of an immediate crisis to your opponent. And even if they don't end up getting to do what they want and they die quickly, you can kind of take advantage of your opponent hitting the panic button and dumping a bunch of their firepower into the spider instead of the rest of your stuff.
They also firmly function in that Tarek Beast F thing, where like a lot of the time, what you can do, damage dealing, spell them onto terrain and into line of sight something, and then just charge turn 1. And just go contest
Yeah.
something on the far corner of the board. Let yourself get set up, get in your face. Hopefully it comes up and it's just able to wipe that thing top of the next turn, or you make your opponent burn a high card to outbid and keep or take initiative such that the spider doesn't just eat whatever's in front of them.
Yep, and push comes to shove, they're still a 7, so they're not a bad bid themselves. I have had a couple of like real heartbreaker games where there's green terrain on the board for some reason, and for whatever reason, I just kind of have a slow start. I'm like, oh well, I pulled bad and I already did a mulligan. I guess it's only 2 activations, and the spider just comes up and he's like, hey, guess what? I get to make 4 actions, and then I just lose the game on round 1. I have lost Pollinor to a spider who hit me 4 times. Like, hit me twice, and then hit me after a swift and a channel. It was crazy.
I believe that the legacy only triggers on each unit. It only grants each unit 1 move or attack per activation.
Yes, but
Really?
like if you wait and cast something in the next activation, like there's a lot of ways you could work around it.
Oh
Or
yeah,
you just
yeah.
cast the swift top of their activation and
Right,
just
yeah,
if you left them on 2 health, they're just dead now. And
That might have
Folds
been what
too.
it was. Yeah, that I don't think. Yeah, because I don't think he played it incorrectly. It was kind of a I think that was it. It was like, wow, that was scary. I'm going to activate Pollinor, and then he's like, well, guess what?
Yeah, take that, nerd.
Yeah,
There's a couple things that I want to add in on the Prowler discussion here. So, in my opinion, this is the premier target for the legacy for all of the reasons that we've discussed. This is kind of the biggest, beefiest, like fallen unit that the deck currently has access to. And if you can,
We're just gonna overlook Thrice like that.
well,
We're just
sorry,
gonna do him
I'm
dirty.
sorry, I'm sorry,
Beefiest unit in the game, and we're not talking about
I'm
Thrice.
sorry. Well, I, I have that kind of at a different level just because you've only got 1 copy, but uh, you're a little more likely to draw at least 1 Duskwood Prowler in a game. Um, I should say that it's the biggest, beefiest of the basic and elites. With that being said, ambush is kind of a critical part of Vorendal's kit, especially if you're going with the green terrain. How important is bid to you?
So it's helpful, and sometimes it's game winning, but a lot of times you can kind of function without it if just because in a lot of games you're just going to be out activating your opponent by so much that it just doesn't matter. Like, okay, you want me to go first? I still have 2 units after you, so I guess you're making a slightly better informed decision. When you have the big ambush units on the table, yes, it's nice to have a good sized big card in your hand such that it can be the spider eats someone at the start of the turn and runs away. And that's where I do think it is helpful to play cards like Barrow Defiler, because why would I waste my 8-bid card by deploying him or something like that? I mean, what's he gonna do? Hit something harder than my Dead at Arms? Not by much. So it's a nice thing to have. A lot of the time it's not strictly necessary, but sometimes it wins games. And
yeah,
it depends what units you have on the table.
yeah. You also have persistent. I think that really does make a difference of being like, well, you will definitely get that unit down to 1 health and like half kill it. Basically, you'll keep it out of the game for this round, but you're not going to get the full value out of your alpha strike basically because of how that Vorendal's legacy works.
Makes sense. All right. So for our host choice of elite card, we've got Brutal Outburst. This is a 2-cost spell swift, and it says deal 2 damage to a unit. During this activation, it gets +3 accuracy. So, even why did you pick the twin flames of the Legion of the Fallen?
Because you stole it from me.
This is true. We did do some reorganizing here.
Yeah. So it's, as I kind of mentioned in the Polynor, in the Polynor episode, I was talking about Twin Flames, and I was kind of like, for most like 2 or 3 cost zots, whatever you want to call them, it's 2 damage and then some other effect. And the thing that makes Twin Flame so crazy is it's 2 damage, and its other effect is choose another thing to deal 2 damage to. And as Zog was mentioning earlier, a lot of the green spells are kind of ho hum with their effect, and I don't actually think that this spell is any exception to that. There are going to be some times where it's like, I really need Vorendal to hit every single one of these onslaught swings. So I am actually going to deal 2 damage to him and give him the buff. But I don't know, man. A lot of the time, it's just 2 damage to an enemy and then an adrenaline rush, an excuse to activate his legacy. I think what really pushes it over the top is that it's a swift, which means that you can play it during your opponent's activations. You can play it during your activation to give 2 different things access to the free move and attack. And it's just that little bit of icing on the cake. It could be, your opponent might be veteran enough where they're like, okay, they're going to have access to like a certain amount of extra activations and moves because of the legacy. They're going to get another move off, they're going to get another swing off, and they'll kind of mentally start planning around that. And then Brutal Outburst is like, yeah, but I get another one. And that's crazy. Like, the fact that you can just do that whenever as well. It's like, if your opponent has last activation and you're like, hey, guess what? I'm hitting something, or I'm going to walk over to that unclaimed husk. You didn't think I could get there, but I can. Like, it's really good. The utility it provides by being a swift, I think that is the main thing. Like, Force March is another very similar spell. It basically has the same cost and effect. It's 2 damage and then a small buff, but that's a channel. And I think specifically this card being a swift is what pushes it over into just being good in almost any circumstance. What do you think, Zog?
The other thing we really have to mention is that because of how the counter spells we have right now work, it is borderline can't be counterspelled because it requires them hitting the 1 in 30 Runefold Ward. So if you need a guaranteed action, it's just there. And you can look across the table, see how many cards your opponent has in hand. I mean, check how much of the deck you've gone through. Odds are it's going to be pretty unlikely that they're like, 1 card, 2 card, 3 card is that Runefull Ward. Now, neutralizing ward that could prevent if you try to do the same thing with a Forced March. Sure, but we have the ace. It's just good. It's free attacks at pretty much whenever you want it.
I think that's an excellent point. Depending on the situation and who you're going up against, if it's anybody with access to blue, they're probably going to have at least 1 neutralizing ward, which, draining Echo with a Force March, not always bad by itself, but a lot of the time your opponent is just going to be, no, Thrice doesn't get another attack. But with Brutal Outburst, it's a lot more specific where they're going to be able to cancel that.
So, okay, yeah, the spell does have to resolve, so you can counter. I was like,
you can, but neutralizing ward specifies channel and things like that.
Yeah.
So
I was just thinking,
at max, Londriel has 3 that can counterspell it, but 2 of those return it to your hand, and then it's a swift, so you just do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, why would I spend 4 to counter like 2 damage? That seems really bad. But yeah, you only get the legacy trigger if the spell resolves. So
that is an important distinction because it's a little vague on the wording.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident it doesn't actually have to resolve. You just have to play it. At least that's direct all your questions to Alan Mercer.
It does say
it's when you play it. It's not when you
during
resolve.
ally's activation, whenever you play a damage dealing spell, a non-seeker fallen ally you own may perform an attack or a move after that spell resolves.
Ah, okay. So yeah, it does need to resolve then.
I do quickly want to add in, we mentioned Forced March, which, like it was said, is exact same cost. It's a channel, deals 2 damage to a unit, but Forced March gives that unit +3 speed. Obviously, being a Swift is very good. I do think that the utility of Forced Marching your own units is probably going to be more relevant than Brutal Outbursting them. However, Swift, like the timing windows that you can play a Swift card are very broad. So you can roll your die, see what the number is, see what their defense is, and then choose if you want to Brutal Outburst or not. So, for example, if you're activating Vorendal and you really need to get one hit through to defeat a unit, you can save, the Brutal Outburst for that moment, and if you're too accuracy off, then you can play the Brutal Outburst then to get yourself there.
Mm-hmm. Wait, hold on. Sorry, one more thing.
Okay.
You can't actually trigger free activations during an opponent's activation.
Yep.
It's specifically during an ally's activation.
It's still 2 damage, and it's probably the second in your activation if it's coming,
But
or
that means
the first and you just need it.
That means some of our analysis is wrong in a minor way. I have to commit harakiri here, right in front of you guys.
This is true. Never mind. Podcast over. Thanks for listening.
Listeners, no, they'll forgive us. They'll forgive us. We're remedying it now. Okay, so we totally lied. You can only do it during one of your unit's activations, which means whoever defeated your Polynor with a million
No, because it was a situation where I left him on 2 and Polynor went to activate, and then Polynor died.
I see. Okay,
it still works. It just doesn't have a punch attached to it when you do that,
okay.
which is obviously why you're playing the spell. But
yeah,
I would say
extra utility.
In most situations, you'd probably want to wait for another one of your activations just to be able to get off like another thing, because you could still like have 2 units make 2 separate moves off of one unit's activation with 2 spells. It just can't be the same unit making another activation or another move or attack off of the channel in the Swift.
The thing it is best for, though, is if your opponent is trying to activate something really low health, it can effectively steal first player. Because they go to activate whatever they want. You kill it when it activates. It is now your turn to go first. Whatever spider or ambush something they were trying to solve now proceeds to move away or just punch them in the face harder.
That is a good point, because like we've got a lot of burns in blue, for instance, but they aren't Swifts. Like they don't have that added amount of like, oh, that thing you were going to activate to start your round off, it's dead now. Whatever, moving on. That's pretty crazy.
I believe this is the only Swift speed that can do something like that. Yeah. Well, with that being said, let's talk about some Thrice Murdered. So it's a 8 cost unique unit Fallen Spirit. It's got an accuracy of 4. Its power is 5 on a hit and 3 on a graze. We have a range of 0, a speed of 8, a defense of 12, a health of 15. And we've got Energy Drain 3. Whenever this unit scores a hit that deals damage, it recovers 3 health. Phasing, whenever a graze is scored against this unit, it prevents the damage. And Flying, while moving, this unit can pass over any obstacle. Go for it.
She's an immortal walking killing machine. And that's about all there is to it. And then even when you do kill her, it's only worth 8. And it will be 8 and dropping a relic, because if she's not holding a relic, she's doing it wrong. But she can hold basically any relic in the game and get good use at it. She hits like a truck, especially once she's holding said relic that you made sure to pass to her. Especially she combos well with the Aura of Fear, which turns phasing into you need to get a 15 or higher, which is just not something that many units, or 14 or higher, which is not something that many units can do reliably. And then even if you do get some damage on her, she'll just punch you and heal back. Because she's got a +4, so she's hitting most of the things. She's borderline immune to swarm decks that don't have a high enough plus to consistently hit that number. She just walls so many things. Your Taric Beast charges her, it's probably not doing anything, and if it is, she's just gonna 2-tap it and heal back. It's ridiculous. It's lovely, and she's probably like one of the best units in the game. But it's just, and she's flying and she's fast. She is the exact opposite of Vorendal, with the exception of the bulk thing. Like, he hits really hard and wants to kind of stand still and get hit and then hit back. She just wants to charge something. If you throw something like Fang of the Damned on her, suddenly she's just healing for 8 on a hit with the special attack. If you throw Vengeance and Retribution on it, then it's even more ridiculous, because now she's just dealing damage constantly. She does a lot of, I will now sit in the middle of your entire army and you're welcome to hit me, it just probably won't help. Borderline requires like an unmaker that level of spell every single game.
It's crazy, man. Like, I'd say this is one of those units where you're just going to want to try to avoid her if you come up against her, which is hard because she is speed 8 with flying. But like, it's more of a thing you play around than actually defeat. In this game, where kind of one of the main conceits of malediction, and I talked about this a bit with stuff that has protection for blue, it's like things that can negate damage are nuts in a game where everything always takes damage. And phasing, I think, is basically tied for the best single ability in the game. It turns like utility pieces like the Umberland Shade into like real problems. And she has the highest defense. She has defense 12, right? Highest defense of anything with phasing in this entire game. And it's just, and that's before you take into account like the Aura of Fear, like Zog was mentioning. Like, Lord have mercy. Like, you're taking a gamble every time you swing at her. And if you actually want to kill her, you need to hit her like 4, maybe even 5 times. And you need to do that before she gets a chance to hit you and get health back. Which, as a reminder, Vorendal, one of his whole things is that he has an amazing access to out-activating most opponents. So a lot of the time, it's not even an option. You're just not going to do enough damage to effectively reduce her health in a meaningful way. You're better off just trying to get away from her or TKing her or just like keeping her at bay. She's really a tour de force. She should probably be the 9 for green, if we're being honest.
Fine. It's fine. We don't need to change her. She's perfect the way she is.
Uh-huh.
She really acts as the hammer to Vorendal's anvil. Because you can only run so far away from Thrice, and if you're doing that, then a lot of the time, given how the board tends to be laid out, you're either running away from her or Vorendal, not both. And given they're both ridiculously tanky, like, it's going to give time for the other one to get in it and get involved. And so it leads to a lot of situations where your opponent is just kind of running back to their deployment corner, and it's just a question of whether you could kill one of your massive, like, almost deity level threats before they could just wipe them off the face of the planet.
There's some relics in the game that literally make this unit unkillable by normal means. Like, if it gets equipped with an everlasting heart, or like I believe it was Andrew who mentioned the Fang, so on a hit it gets to heal 8. Even something like the Everkeep Reliquary to make it a little bit harder to actually score that hit. Yeah, this is
Aura of Fear. You must roll a 16 in order to do anything.
Yep. So yeah, this is definitely the premier unique unit. But let's talk about one of the most premier unique spells. So Unmake is a 5-cost spell channel, and it quite simply says deal 10 damage to a unit. So this was my contribution to the picks of the best cards. And it probably will be for all of the Fallen Seekers that we go over. Um, Unmake is one of those cards that just kind of defines the game as it is. Um, Against most decks, it has the ability to just completely take out and stop the threat of like a priest or one of those backline utility units. Um, Almost always you're getting like just instant mastery for playing it. It's one of those cards that will probably win you the game on the spot just by playing and resolving it, whether that be like defeating one of their relic holders that's nearby and then, hey, this is a damage dealing spell. I'm going to go get my free move and move in and go and take that relic. Or maybe it's stopping the win. Maybe they're at 40 and you've now just like got a little gun in your pocket that can blow up their relic holder and at least make the game last one more round. For such a simple effect, the utility here is unmatched, and I think that it's going to be very difficult for any spells in the future to come close to the power of Unmake.
I would agree with all that. I do think you do got to watch out because if your opponent knows you have it, that is like going to be the thing that they are saving their neutralizing ward or even a runeful ward for. I will say though, another great way to think about it is something big and chunky, especially like a seeker. It's like, oh, Polynor doesn't actually have 14 health; he has 4 health. Like, or Morida has 4 health, or Sigrith or Thundersteps have like 8 or 10 health respectively. Like if you just see it through that, like, well, I just need to get them to this threshold, and then I can dumpster them, is like pretty crazy. And not only is that 10 points in the bag right away, they also often have relics. It really does change the entire momentum of what's going on. I think the only thing that holds it back is that people know about it and respect it and kind of plan accordingly because it's so powerful. It's so well known, and people are like, oh, he's playing green. He's probably going to dump Unmake on me at some point in the game. I better have a plan for that. But it's suffering from success a little bit, I guess is my point.
Yeah, you definitely, when you're playing against any deck with green, you have to keep an eye on their Echo dial. And if they have 5, like caveat if Starcast are in play, for like if they have that much Echo, you need to be wary of this card because there is a non-zero chance that it will come and punch you in the face very, very hard.
That adds into the whole mind game of now, if you're the Vorendal player, you could kind of, if you're sitting on reasonably high Echo, which again, your stuff is dirt cheap, so that's not hard, you could kind of play spells without fear of being counterspelled. Because if you have even the threat of an Unmake, like what are you going to do? Stop Forced March? And even if that Forced March is worth like 8 damage, 2 from itself, 6 from a spider hit, like if they gotta wait and respect it, it could let you get away with some stupid things just by holding 2 cards, one of which is like a corpse or something, and the other is a Forced March, and happening to be in the like 7 Echo range.
It's I guess, yeah. Don't forget it is a damaging spell. So you do get a
Always,
mover and attack off of it.
always remember to attack your opponent's psyche before their units on the table. Really mess with their minds.
Explode, use corpse explosion on your seeker. You have to do
No,
it.
no. We're not going back to that. Okay. Do either of you have any other additional points regarding cards, good cards in the deck?
I feel like it's hard for green because there's a lot of good stuff in green. And even the stuff that's kind of so-so is made good by Vorendal's legacy. Like his damage spells are kind of whatever, except for Unmake and Call of the Grave, I guess. But like,
Death's Call.
yeah, Death's Call. But it's like,
Although at this point, maybe we need to make you an alt art card that says Call of the Grave.
okay, man, look, whatever. You knew what I was talking about. My point is that I think green, with a couple of exceptions, R.I.P. Tragedy of the Wronged, a lot of their stuff is like really tightly grouped as far as quality goes. Like more than any other faction. I think blue has some stuff that I just looked at it once and I'm like, this might be cool, but it's not going in. It's not going to work. Maybe not even as a side deck thing. Green just has this basic, like everything's kind of bad in good ways. Like that is to say, a lot of the stuff has low stats, and it's just like fulfill this gimmick to make them really good. They're kind of simple in a way that doesn't rely on kind of input from spells in the way that blue does. They're really tightly packed. I think, like with Disgrace Kinship, I could have put Deadeye Archer there just as easily, or Dead at Arms. Like they're all really good.
I think that it is helpful to talk about just very briefly some cards that don't quite make the cut. Um, these are things that should probably stay in your binder or your box or wherever you're keeping the cards that don't go anywhere near the malediction. My selection of a not so good card here is Dark Bindings. So this is a 2-cost silver spell channel, and it says exhaust a basic enemy. I think that there are a few effects in this faction that kind of deal with activation or action point control. And this is probably just the worst out of all of them, in my opinion. Most of the time, your opponent's basic enemy is not going to be worth spending 2 just to make it tap in place and sit there. There's really no cases where I would rather have this over a unit, even if that unit is just sitting there and doing absolutely nothing. It still forces the same kind of activation tempo. Granted, your opponent is going to get to do things with their unit, but I really have looked at this card so many times and struggled to find a use case for it. But do either of you have a quick nomination for an awful card in this faction?
I feel like a lot of the spells that don't deal damage are just not worth your time. There are a couple of exceptions. I think we'll talk about Drown a little bit more when it comes up, but a lot of them are side deck fodder at best. Curse of Lethargy has its uses, for example. Can you bring that one up real quick?
Absolutely. So Curse of Lethargy is a 3-cost silver spell swift. It says choose an enemy that is being activated. That enemy loses 1 action point.
Yeah, that is a cool effect. It's neat. I like it, but the thing is, every time you play something like that, it's well, I really wish that this had been a damage dealing card because I would have gotten more value out of it. It does, I think, have its side deck matchups against Morida. You can be hey, guess what? You don't get to bring back a guy because that's a 2 AP action. Against stuff with 2 AP actions like Onslaught, it's solid, but I don't know.
That's so much more niche.
Yeah, it's something for the side deck, which I will say is maybe kind of nice in that I would say even kind of the weird specific stuff for this faction, I can still see a place for it on the side deck a lot of the time.
I'm going to use this to introduce our hot takes segment, which is obviously not yet, but here we go. Corpse Explosion is bad.
Ooh.
It's the biggest thing about Vorendal is you're trying to make your opponent waste actions. And unless you're killing a unit that was dead anyway, in which case you're still saving them from having to spend something to kill it, you better be getting 8 damage plus off this thing. It better be full unmake to be giving your opponent the way out of removing a unit from the table.
Yeah.
Or
I guess
you better be killing something and winning the game.
Yeah, and it's the thing that would enable that would be I don't know, Writhing Pain, which is it's a I think it's a Swift spell. Or maybe it's channel, I don't know. I haven't really paid attention to it because it's not very good. And
Writhing
it's
Pain is also a channel.
Okay, yeah. So you can't even use it.
Let's give some people some context here. So Corpse Explosion is a 2-cost copper spell channel. Choose an ally you own. Deal 3 damage to all other units within 3 inches. That ally is defeated. And Writhing Pain is a 2-cost silver spell channel. Choose an enemy during this activation. That enemy gains Frailty 2. Whenever this unit is dealt damage, it suffers 2 extra damage.
And like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that you should have 0 corpse explosions in your deck, because there are situations where it can win games. If you're blowing up the Flesh Ripper and doing 7 damage to everything, that's objectively good. If you're blowing up your Seeker for the mental superiority, that's objectively better. However, I think if you're playing all 3 and you're actually planning on actually playing them, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah, I feel like maybe if it was one of those things where the wording was like your unit is reduced to 1 health, where you could still use persist with it, it would be hilarious. But you know, just all the innards of that horrible zombie explode, but it's still standing there at 1 health. But no, because it's defeat something, you can't persist out of that; it just dies. So I feel you there.
Yeah, because persist requires you to be dealt lethal damage. Man, I really love the like theming of corpse explosion. It just makes so much sense. But yeah, I mean, I could totally see it. I mean, even in Ingor, I want to be at 3 copies. Yeah, just because I like the card, but I'm just down to 2
It's
now because it's a dead draw
it's
if you end
better
up
in
with
Ingor.
multiple. Yeah,
It's so
but
much better in Ingor because you could just pop boars. I'm just saying at Vorendal,
yeah, but like even then, it's still you definitely never want multiple of these. Like you want one for the surprise factor, if that. Let's keep it moving into some relics. So the way that we are going to be doing our relic section is we're going to talk about the top 3, with the exception of boots, because if we talked about boots for every single seeker, then it would be a top 2 list. We stick that in our honorable mentions, and we don't talk about it anymore. So our honorable mentions here are the boots, the scepter.
and then
You said
anything
bulk
that
weapons.
makes your units bulkier. Any
Okay.
sort of Guardian's Aegis, anything that just forces a little bit more inefficiency on the opponent. Even Martyrs and things like that have a place here because just bestowing regen 2 is
Mm-hmm.
sometimes worth it. I am going to spend about 5 seconds talking about why Boots is better here because Onslaught and then thrice getting 3 attacks is just good.
Yep. Makes sense. All right. So our number 3 pick is the Ring of Time. So this is an attachment relic. This unit gains spell recall to AP. Play a basic or elite spell from any discard pile without spending Echo. After resolving its effects, banish that spell. Give us the rundown.
It lets you steal your opponent's damage dealing spells. Things like Twin Flames that are actually good. You get to play them and do an extra attack off it. It gets around the thing that's currently doing a lot to hold Vorendal in line of like your damage dealing spells just aren't great in general, with the obvious exception. And it just lets you play stupid things from your opponent. And it's great. Or it lets you stride if you're playing against a blue and they happen to have a stride in the discard. Or TK. It just takes whatever the best spell at that moment your opponent has. And it's not like you didn't have a unit that was okay with just sitting at the back wasting its activations.
Yeah, the game where you get to steal your opponent's telekinesis and stick their seeker right in front of a ready to onslaught Vorendal. Yeah, that's absolutely degenerate. All right, we're
Just
gonna
you
move
wait
on.
until we talk about ways that you can actually discard your opponent's TK and then steal it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Our number 2 pick is the Fang of the Damned. So this is an attachment relic. This unit gains, once during this unit's activation, it may suffer 3 damage to perform a free attack. If this unit scores a hit, this unit recovers 5 health. We talked a little bit about why that's great with Thrice, but what else causes it to make your top 3 list?
It works with Vorendal as well. And honestly, that's all you need because it's gonna. It works with Vorendal and it works with Cessnar and Thrice. And honestly, those are gonna be your three main users of like Fang the Damned, but on any of them, it's fantastic. They all have super high pluses, so they're hitting a lot of the time. They all hit like a truck when they hit. And, I mean, especially if you could set up the ultimate Cessnar where you get to stab the 3 times on something you're ambushing. Dropping 21 damage on something before spells is ridiculous. And when in doubt, you heal. Or you don't.
And then you kind of cheated a little bit for your number 1 pick. We have 2 here. So I'm going to go through both of them. They're very similar, so it's going to be a nice, easy discussion. But we've got Veil Piercer, an attachment relic. This unit gains range +3. Ranged Expert 2. This unit gets +2 power on range attacks. And while tracing line of sight during a ranged attack, ignore the obscuring terrain ability. And then we've also got Reaper's Edge. This is an attachment relic. This unit gains Melee Expert 2. While performing a melee attack, this unit gets +2 power. Essence Binder 3. Whenever an enemy is defeated during this unit's activation, you gain 3 Echo. And non-seeker enemies defeated by this unit are banished. Tell me a little bit about these 2.
They deal more damage in a way that Vorendal could capitalize extra off of because you get to keep playing spells to keep making that unit attack. And so even if you're doing just weird things like Veil Piercer thrice wins games because he's that much harder to run away from. He's now hitting for 7/5. And you could just keep playing spells. And I mean, if you're engaged with someone, oh well, he's gonna miss into phasing anyway. So they both just help you hit harder, and they make your AP advantage just hurt that little bit more. And Reapers gets you some Echo, which is rarely a problem, but I mean it's nice to have.
Yeah, I think like Scythe. Okay, if the next guest we have on talks about Scythe the same way that we did and Zog did, I legitimately vote that we put it in the same camp as Boots, where it's so obviously bustedly good that we don't even put it in the running.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. All right. Any final, opinions about relics? Is there any that you like absolutely hate, or I don't know, just any other notes there?
Don't you dare pick up the cloak or whatever it is that gives flying and teleport.
Okay.
It's never the right choice. Just
No.
walk where you're trying to go.
I actually, that game that I played in the recent tournament, he picked up Cloak and he almost won the game because of it. And I won't bother with the story now, especially because I can't remember all the details. But this was the one case, and I'm usually it's obviously the worst relic in the game, but like this was the one time where I was like, wow, this is actually a smart decision to take Cloak, and I really could not do much to combat it. It was kind of crazy. All right, so we're going to move into our matchup section. So we're going to talk about some good matchups, some bad matchups, some of the cards that we can bring in from our sideboard to help in those bad matchups. But let's start with some of the decks that you feel favored into. So your opponent has just revealed their Seeker, and what are they showing you that makes you feel pretty good about the game?
The super aggressive ones, like the ones that are gonna have to do crazy things like charge Vorendal and things like that, those matchups feel a whole lot easier. The one thing about Vorendal is since he's this very mid-range balancey seeker, is it feels a lot like you have a chance in everything, but you also have a chance to steal defeat from the jaws of victory into basically everything. I would say you're better into aggressive decks, and you're slightly worse into defensive decks, especially the more defensive deck. So things like Laundriel that go and cower in the corner. It's going to be harder, and you're going to need more of your side deck associated to beating things like that. As things get more aggressive, it tends to be easier because you get to, I mean, Onslaught is inherently defensive, and that is where a lot of your seeker power comes from. So,
Yeah, I would just say, yeah, you are at risk in Vorendal of kind of feeding people units if you're not careful. And I feel like the defensive, your Aurochs and your Sigriths are going to be able to just kind of be like, oh, well, I can put another 2 attacks into this thing and just take it off the board because you threw it up. You do need to be more careful. I feel like he kind of thrives against stuff where they're already going to like throw everything at you from the jump.
You mentioned earlier in the episode about having strong aggressive and defensive options and choosing based off of your opponent's, you see their deck before anything else happens in the game, and so you can choose your strategy from there. The Who's the Beatdown article comes to mind here because there are some games where you want to be the aggressor, you want to push the tempo, and there are some games where you need to pull back. And it seems like when your opponent is the aggressor, you feel very comfortable kind of being the person to take control of the game from there.
Absolutely. Even the things like ambush, like a lot of your offensive power comes from those ambush and those really fast and swarm and things like that. And all of those work equally well on the defensive side for the most part, and then you just get the benefit of onslaught. Meanwhile, positioning onslaught offensively is just that little bit awkward. So in general, you need to tech that little bit more into when you have to go balls to the walls. And that is one of the things of my style of playing like balancey Vorendal. If you're playing full commit Swarm Vorendal, I don't have a whole lot of experience with that. So those matchup spreads is quite possibly completely different. But
Fair
it's
enough.
just choose the right one and then beat your opponent at their own game.
The psychopathic undead warlord truly is the most balanced and zen playstyle.
Very mentally stable undead warlord, you mean?
Yep. Listen, you can't have depression if you've already been. I don't know if he was murdered or if he just like
He just
died
did
in
that,
there.
I think.
Yeah.
He,
Okay.
he he ripped his own heart out so he could
Ooh.
replace it with his legacy.
Okay.
He's built different.
Totally normal individual with
Yep.
nothing special about it.
Yep. All right.
Relatable guy, some would say.
So our bad matchups, which you've already kind of touched on, but the defensive options, the things that can scale and set up. So we've got Londriel, obviously. We're going to talk about Londriel most of these episodes. Things like Morida and Auric, who can take their time in the game. I would assume Sigrith probably falls into this category as well.
Sigrith is easier because how hard you're leaning into chip damage almost just goes like well past. Like she's very okay to discard her entire hand and cancel what 2 or 3 dead at arms attacks.
Yeah, and then you've just got
Okay, you
more there
probably
waiting.
had 4 more. So if anything, like she's almost easier. And if you can get her to a low echo, low card situation, then unmake is just the nuke you need in the moment.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's going to be the case for a lot of these decks where, I mean, you want to grind them out of their own value and just outlast just enough to be able to take advantage, take the advantage yourself. But let's talk about some sideboard cards. So it's kind of been hinted at a little bit, but we've got Drown in Oblivion, 2-cost silver spell swift. Choose an opponent, they discard a random card from their hand. If the discarded card is a spell, they lose 2 echo. Why is this important?
It's hand control in a game that has very, very little draw cards. So it's especially amazing into the things that are deploying a lot of units and then holding a couple spells. Or the exact opposite, where it's like if you drown in Oblivion Apollonor, you're hitting a spell. Like it functions both as it gives you a long game state that can still be winnable. Because talking about the things like the Londriel, like the Morta, it allows you to do a lot to position Unmake and things like that into a situation where you play your Drown in Oblivion. Let's say it hits a neutralizing ward, or it just hits a different spell that bumps them below the echo required to cast counterspell, and then you just have all the knowledge you need to just unmake something. Or even better, you hit something like a TK in not Polynor, or even in Polynor, giving them one less or no uses of that spell. And especially given
Polynor runs a tight ship when it comes to Echo too. Like he needs every single bit of Echo he can. Getting even like 2 Echo drained out of you is like miserable. It's what Curse wishes it could do.
it also just functions as, right, a lot of these slow setup things can only be as good as their card draw at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't matter how many units Morta has on the board. At the end of the turn, she draws 2 cards like everybody else, and if one of them's a spell and she can't deploy it, and you can just get rid of it, it keeps both players' hand sizes down, which tends to be better for Vorendal because it prevents a lot of the comboing, scaling, healing, protection, things like that. And occasionally you just discard like a demanifest or something and you win the game on this.
Yeah, the fact that it's a random card is really disgusting because there's really no plan around it. You can hope that it's, the weakest card in your hand, but sometimes they will hit your demanifest or, whatever, and that really sucks. Any other points on Drown?
It's also a Swift, so it's another thing that borderline works completely around counterspells, which tends to be a theme in this type of deck. Is that since we have no counterspells, there's a lot that you have to do with if you're playing against the blue. You're knowing they're probably going to have probably all 3 of them in the deck since they need as much of a chance as possible to stop unmake. So
Yeah.
it's just an annoyance.
The Soul Whisperer is a 7-cost silver unit human, accuracy of 4, power of 4 on a hit, 2 on a graze, range of 12, speed of 6, defense of 12, health of 10. It's got Curse 3, which is a 1 AP for each enemy within 6 inches. Their owner loses 1 Echo, and this provokes retaliation. Essence Binder 3, whenever an enemy is defeated during this unit's activation, you gain 3 Echo. And Pinpoint, this unit can trace line of sight through other units. What are you bringing Soul Whisper in against?
Laundriel. And yeah, Laundriel. Occasionally, maybe if the orc is really corner castling and if you want like a pinpoint to go snipe a priest or a totem. But mainly this is just Laundriel at the current state of the game. It must have some impact on how you're setting up your decks. This is part of my commitment to having a chance in the Laundriel matchup.
Yeah, the range is pretty critical. It makes it a little bit easier to try and pick off some things, without having to fully commit to embracing their murder death ball.
Not a fallen man. Terrible. No notes.
Yeah.
Get it out of here.
Just there are a couple of those units that are just not fallen, just to mess with Vorendal is my theory. Like Barrow Defiler would have been so easy to just write the word fallen at the top, and suddenly I might even think about deploying him.
Yep.
Let's hope.
Another non-fallen unit that is pretty helpful to have in the sideboard is Sestinar the Silent. He is a 9-cost unique unit human, accuracy of 5, power of 5 on a hit, 3 on a graze, range of 0, speed of 8, a defense of 13, and a health of 12. He's got spell immunity. Whenever a spell would affect this unit, it may ignore that spell. Ambush 2, this unit gains +2 power on attacks against refresh enemies. And Hit and Run, whenever this unit defeats an enemy, it may perform a free move. This guy is like pretty solid. I think that, you mentioned that he's like maybe main deck playable. you should have him and then the spiders in some form or fashion. But like, is there a reason why he would get demoted to just in the sideboard? I guess because he's just a human, right? Not a fallen.
He's kind of not a great unit in general, but he also happens to be exactly what you need a lot of the time. Him and the spiders are a large portion of your super aggressive game plan. Because when in doubt, they're just carrying all of your stitched corpses and Vorendal up the field, dumping them in front of the enemy, and then just picking around the edges. Or he could do a worse version of what the spiders do and just run out, contest a relic, or run out and stab somebody. Um, spell immunity is great. It is not. It is one of the most beautiful things of the game to have him and Vorendal holding the Spell Eater mask as the only two units you have deployed against something like Polynor. And you could just walk around with no fear in your heart because they can't really touch you at all. So it lets you do weird things. He stabs people very well. He also dies very well. So double-edged sword. You need him somewhere just to go run up and stab Londriel and things like that. Some version of that. What he's good for, he does what he does.
Yeah, he's one of 4 cards that have the spell immunity keyword written on them. One of those things being a relic, and one of them being a seeker. So naturally, that is going to include some kind of power with it. All right, the last little section that we have here is the item conversation. We talked a little bit earlier about the Shroud Cloak and how that interacts with some deployment options. The other thing that works really well with Vorendal's Onslaught ability is the Feral Gauntlets, which is a 2-cost silver attachment item. This unit gains accuracy +2 and rend 3 whenever this unit scores a second melee hit against the same enemy during an activation. It deals 3 additional damage. This seems, not too bad, but there's some inherent weaknesses with including items in your deck. So talk to me a little bit about that.
All you, Ethan. This was your idea.
Look. They're only 2. You're generally not giving your opponent much in the way of echo when your shit dies anyway. And I don't run Sestinar because I think he's like too much to give your opponent access to as far as echo goes. I think you can't really point to a unit, even ones that don't have onslaught, where they wouldn't really benefit, because one of the things with their kind of low stats on most units is, they don't hit super frequently. I do think there's kind of a threshold below which it's not worth it. I certainly wouldn't give this to a Dead at Arms for obvious reasons. Sorry, it's late. The Archer. The Deadeye Archer can't use this at all, even though he can equip it, which is pretty funny. But the Dead at Arms, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. But like I mentioned, a disgraced kinship or a spider, because you're already kind of throwing caution to the wind with a spider. A spider that hits on like a 5 or a 6 is just crazy scary. And because of how the legacy works, even things without onslaught are going to get the opportunity to get a second attack off, a charge, and then another attack, or a free move and then an onslaught. Like, I think that the Feral Gauntlets seriously have a place in Vorendal's setup. I don't think they're required. I don't think they're at the core of his strategy, but I think they can make everything just a tad bit more dangerous. And I think if you put them on, thrice, you're already planning around thrice like never dying, and if thrice dies, it's basically game for you anyway. If you get the gauntlets on thrice, they are just even more of a blender, and they can take on things that they might not have even been able to kill before, like the Gateway Guardian.
Yeah, the biggest thing is, since things like Disgraced have such low accuracy, it kind of changes the math, where in general, gauntlets are going to be better for you than Horned Helmet, kind of contrary to the Auric Wisdom. just because if a disgraced kinship hits one time when it wasn't supposed to hit, you've almost completely made up the advantage of Horned Helmet. And then if
Yup.
you happen to trigger Rend, sweet.
Oh boy, yeah. No, I think it is like the most efficient. Items have a lot of problems right now, but I think for offensive items, I think the Feral Gauntlets are kind of at the top of the pile.
Okay, well, we're just a little over the 2 hour mark, so let's bring this thing home. We're going to talk about how to beat Vorendal. So you've just joined the Air Force Academy, and you're playing with Zog every single day, and he's whooping you. So how are we going to beat Vorendal?
Run and shoot. And that's about what you got. If Vorendal engages you, don't be afraid to just spend 2 points and shift away. There's a lot to talk about with just denying onslaughts and making him keep charging you. Similarly, things like strides, TKs, disembodies, anything that just lets you move without triggering retaliation is just good. Because a lot of his goal is just to bog you down and make it such that you can't reposition. Meanwhile, he's shifting guys behind lines and attacking where it hurts, etc. And then just as he's coming at you, trickle some damage in. See if you could get a kill on the guy behind the lines. If you can, be the defensive player, since that is generally what he does it for. Obviously, there are some things like, I mean, if you're Ingor, you kind of just got to send it and hope it works. But there's a lot of that. Is if you're in the right position where you will win a long drawn out game, stretch the time as much as possible. Even if it means you get the worst end of a damage trade, just keeping the game running to the point where you can catch back up on activations and echo, it'll help a lot.
Yeah, I'd say that all makes sense. Just kind of try and counter his crazy action economy advantage. Just force him to spend a bit more on moving as opposed to attacking, because every little bit is going to matter against him, because he can flatten things if you don't. Anything with like a stride where you're basically getting a movement for free is like a godsend, because it's already good in situations where your opponent, like, oh, I would have been able to make 2 attacks and get you down to 2 health. But now I only get to make 1 attack and get you down to half health. But for him, it's like, I would have killed you. Like, I would have taken your pieces off of the board with 3 attacks if you hadn't moved just then.
All right. Well, we're going to move into our final section of the night. This is where we've got some community questions or hot takes. If you have anything that you would like to submit and hear us talk about on the podcast, feel free to either message Ethan or myself, or put it in the Critical Grays little channel on the Discord. You can leave it as a comment on Spotify as well, and we will talk about it. I am digging through the bottom of the barrel with all of the stuff that Alan sent me. Speaking of which, he will be featured tonight with a terrible take. This is Alan/Mercier. Curse is an underrated ability. For a quick reminder on what Curse is, it is a 1 AP and will be attached to a number. I think everything we've got in the game right now is Curse 3. For each enemy within 6 inches, their owner loses 1 echo, up to X echo per activation, provokes retaliation. So why is Curse an underrated ability? Why is it good?
That's a great question, and I think we need Alan on here to defend this horrendous take. The only part of Curse that's underrated is the fact that no one rates it.
That was exactly what I was going to say. Like, it is probably technically underrated in that people just pretend it doesn't exist. I should have mentioned this unit before in our like bad cards segment, but he's so bad I didn't think to include him. The Anun Shah disciples or whatever they're called.
Yep, Anushva Disciple.
They're kind of what I think they're meant to be is like anti-priests, like anti-yellow priests.
It's the like evil analog to the priest.
But the thing is that like the main actual problem with Well, I'm sorry. There's a lot of problems with Curse. But I think a big problem with Curse is not currently on any unit you would ever want to be in the midst of that many enemy units anyway. Like, it's not really on any beat sticks. It's like on Morida and the Disciples. I think that's literally it.
And Soul Whisper.
Soul Whispers.
Okay, yeah, that's another thing that you definitely want to be throwing into your enemy's face. Like,
Yeah,
these are
but, like,
all.
all of them have like ranged attacks that you would rather be making, and like the
Yes,
Disciple is terrible. You like don't want that in your deck at all. But
but
like,
he does have a gun. Yeah, you could
yeah,
just.
He's
yeah,
got
switch
a
his gun.
he's got a gun which can be helpful into Laundriel. And if you're playing Super Swarm and you're pushed up into like 24 plus unit counts or something, sure,
Yeah.
have some Disciples.
The other thing is that he's not a fallen unit, so he doesn't get the
No.
benefit from the legacy. Not that you'd want to put the legacy's effect on him, but it's just another little thing that's it's not as flexible.
Another
there-
unit that's not a fallen, purely to mess with Vorendal.
we should real quick let's throw up his card because it is important.
I have already closed down that tab, and I
Ah.
don't. Yeah, I don't think that it's worth it.
Okay, fair enough. He's a cost 4 bronze. He's already
He costs 3.
also. Oh, he's cost 3. Okay,
Yeah.
cost 3 bronze. He's got a basic gun and he's got curse. Does he have anything else even?
I don't think so. All right. I'm
He has
grasping
Essence
it's.
Finder. He has
Yeah,
Essence
yeah.
Finder too.
Okay, so you could generate
Okay.
a little bit of echo, maybe.
For all of the Echo Prums that your green was running into playing your 2 and 3 cost units, he can really help with.
Yeah, that's it's silly. Oh yeah, and of course we have Morida, who absolutely wants to be spending her AP cursing people.
Yeah. All right. So here's my take on it. Obviously, I'm grasping at strings. I'm pulling at everything. And the only situation that I could like engineer in my mind is if your opponent is like a Thundersteps or something, or just red in general, and their early deployment was like 2 totems in the deployment zone, that their plan was to just prey off of every turn to generate like 4 echo around. And you send your Anushva disciple up and sit in their deployment zone with them because those totems can't fight you back, and you can make it so that they only gain 1 echo around. That is the only situation that I could think of where like you're presenting this as anything to impact the game and it doesn't just like get killed. And even then, I don't think that like the advantage that you're getting is anything crazy. But I don't know. Maybe it matters. Maybe.
In a
This-
faction built around punching people, he doesn't do that very well.
Right.
the only thing I'll say is that this game does get weird sometimes, and maybe there will be a situation where it's like, well, Morida's been chased out of her hidey hole, and she doesn't have anybody to shoot at, and there's 3 units behind this wall. Screw you, 3 less echo. Like,
Yeah.
maybe, whatever.
I think that if we ever get some kind of ability that allows you to spend echo during the activation phase for something other than spells, like for example, like in Magic, you've got these activated abilities where you can spend your mana to do things that are not like playing a new card. So if we ever got something like that, where it's like 1 action point, spend some echo and like do a thing, I could totally see Curse becoming relevant there because that's something that they're wanting to save echo for, past deployment.
Yeah.
But as it stands right now, the only thing that you can really do with echo past deployment is cast spells or save it for next turn. And usually like it just the situations where it comes up is just so rare.
You heard it here first, folks. Bodhi is committing to running all 3 Disciples and both Soul Whisperers in a Morta deck if those type of abilities ever come out.
Aha.
All right,
And he will prove to us that it's good.
If we ever get something like that, I will bring my Morida Witches deck, and it will be very, very okay. Let's close it out here. I think that this was some really good discussion about Vorendal. I hope that the listener has learned a lot. I definitely have, and I'm excited to get this guy back on the table. Um, do either of you have any final notes?
I
He's
just want
fun.
y'all to know.
Mm-hmm.
I just want y'all to know that this was my favorite Seeker, and it's all downhill from here.
There you go. There you go. Bringing it back. Bringing it back. Vorendal's fun. Like, don't get me wrong. I love Polynor. I love pulling off slick tricks with Polynor. But like, Vorendal is like the guy where even when I lose, it was really funny. Like, I've never had like a game playing as Vorendal where I'm not like, haha, that was great. You know, I think he is really John Malediction.
If you
It's just
ever
the guy.
get bored of doing stupid spell shenanigans and just want to punch people in the face, play Vorendal.
Play Thundersteps. All right. Well,
Well, we will be talking about Thundersteps on our next episode of Critical Grace. We've got a sweet episode lined up for that. And after, for episode 4, we'll probably be doing Sigrith just to round out our monocolored options. However, if you have any suggestions for episode 5, our first dual-colored Seeker, feel free to leave those anywhere in the comments or contact us, because I'm definitely interested to hear what people want to learn about. If we've got nothing else, then I hope that you, as a listener, have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you next time.
have a good one.